Who's the best team in the American League? It's all said and done,
The
John.
best team is the Houston Astros. They're the best team to start the season. I don't think it'll change much throughout the year. The unknown is injuries, of course, that you can never predict. But this team has a pitching staff that's as good as anybody you'll see in a long time. It has the dynamics of an offense that really shouldn't go in any prolonged slumps. And they've got guys, I've said this before, I'll say it tonight on telecast, there's a team that has won the World Series. You can look back and go, okay, 6, 7, 8 guys had fantastic, way above average years. Don't think they can duplicate that. I would say that the Astros only have 2 or 3 guys that won't have better years. That's the possibility that they have going for them. So they add Cole. He's a monster. You talked about Charlie Morton. Verlander's probably one of those guys that'd be very difficult to duplicate the run he's on, but they can all get better. Correa missed a bunch of games. Altuve may be a guy that, it's hard to keep going up from what he did. But they have everything that you need for a young team that's still hungry, that they know. There's a difference when you leave spring training. Internally, guys may not admit certain things, and rightfully so, but they know they're the best team in the American League. And that's a nice thing to have going in, knowing that you're not going to go into prolonged slumps because your starters 1 through 5, if they stay healthy, can shut down the opponents at a pretty good rate.
And I love that take, John. You could even include A.J. Hinch in there too, right? Having a better year, even though he was stupendous last year with the flood and the issues that were going on in the city and what he did. You could even include him in that mix.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you what he's done. In this sabermetric world that we kind of sometimes pour too much in one bucket, but it's great to have the blend of information, and the Astros do it as good as anybody. His ability to manage that team and people is just not only to your point about, the tragedy that was taking place in Houston, but the ability to go with some gut feelings in times where maybe it was unconventional, and he's bought himself some credibility in those arenas now. Because I said this last year, say it again, it's nice to have a ton of information. It's nice to have a kind of play game, game plan that if everything works out the way it should, it's great to have that information. But if you don't adjust on the fly, and if you don't let your eyes see some things that are different than the data that's being poured in, you're doing yourself a disservice. And I thought his managing skills in the World Series especially were second to none. They were gutsy, and it panned out in a way where they ultimately won the World Series, I think, because of it. So as a manager, I always ask young managers or new managers, we're always kind of looking at, hey, as a player, what do you want to work on this year? What would you like to get better? What would you like to improve on? Rarely do we ask a manager that, and that's my first question. Every year early on, I'm going, what did you learn from last year as a manager? What would you do differently? And those are questions that are intriguing to me because we rarely focus on that aspect of it because we're so consumed on what a player can do better.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.